All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Jamel Saladin. This is Society Past, Present, and Future, a sociology YouTube channel where we go over many different things that happened in the past, is currently happening, or may happen in the future. This current series, we're talking about your pastor, what he didn't tell you, right? And there's many reasons he may not have told you this. He may have known and just figured, hey, what do you need to know that for? Just praise God. Or he may not have known himself, because I don't think all pastors even go to seminary, right? So this is more for the person who wants a balanced education, information, diet. Because sometimes when people got questions and they are in the church, they don't know who to go to. Because quite frankly, the person they may be going to may be extreme or may have bad intentions. You may want me to leave this church. I don't have these intentions. I don't have no religion to give you. I have no religion. I'm not trying to get you out of the church. I'm not trying to get you to leave. I'm not trying to do none of those things. I just thought it would be fair to you to understand the discrepancies within your belief system so that you can make a better choice. That's it. So we are on part two. This is part two of what your pastor did not tell you and why. So let's start with modern scholarship. Well, let's start off where we left off. We left off with the four different types of sources within the documentary hypothesis. So now we understand that J is kind of like the Yahwehist. When we hear a theologian or a scholar and he's talking about, well, in J, before we may not have understood what he was talking about, but now we do. We know that these theologians have classified the different writing styles, different sources that some of these writers may have used, and they have categorized them with different variables, different letters. J standing for the Yahwehist, the P standing for the priestly, the E standing for the Elohimist, and there was one more, right? There was four altogether. Hold on. E for the Elohimist. The Deuteronomist, law and covenant, right? So each category has its own focal point, right, and their own strength. The Yahwehist writers really focused on storytelling, personal, making God more human, like a personal relationship with God. The Elohimist, the God was more distant. He spoke through dreams and angels, right? Deuteronomist writers, they focused on the law, the covenant. Obey, you get the blessings. Disobey, you get curses, right? National identity focus. And the priest, the P, they focused on the rituals, the structure, the genealogy, sacred order, right? So in total, there were four major source documents, JEDP, to form the classic documentary hypothesis as taught in biblical studies today. Modern scholarship refining the model. The four source model has proven remarkably durable, but modern scholarship has continued to refine and debate it. The relationship between J and E is particularly contested. The two sources overlap. So in this video, we will go over some of those points where they do overlap, which I found interesting. The two sources overlap so extensively that some scholars now treat them as a single combined tradition. See, that's a problem. I don't know about for you, but when you notice anomalies like that, and you don't bring it, like, first of all, who are you to just say, just streamline it, right? Somebody obviously who felt like regular people outside of some type of political or church organizational status wasn't good enough to even be considered in the decision. But guess what? This is your faith. So what I'm telling you is not make believe. I'm not telling you some type of conspiracy theory. I'm telling you that even the ancient, well, before we use the word ancient, is kind of cap anyway. But scholars and theologians from the 1700s have seen this overlap. So they all verify, yeah, this looks like it's definitely two scholars here. And I'm going to go on the record and say even before that, people knew what was going on, but they decided to streamline the stories, which would make things worse later on because people will find out. And then when they find out, a lot of people are not doing rigorous research. They're just finding out the spot discrepancies, and then they run it off to the races, Jack. They're like, yo, this whole thing is fake. It's gonna do you it's gonna be way worse than if you just came out and told the truth, I think, in my opinion. But we're way past that now. So the J and E overlap problem. J and E tell many of the same stories, but with different details, different names for God, and subtle, different theological emphasis. Later, editors called redactors wove the two traditions together into a continuous narrative, blending them so thoroughly that separating them is now a matter of scholarly debate. So again, your pastor even knows about this, but he's like, yo, I'm in the business of church. So it is not if you don't believe in the Bible, he may get arrogant on you. Yo, if you don't believe in the Bible, get out of here. The question is whether you want to be a part of something like that. Could you do this on your own? I mean, clearly they made these decisions on their own without telling the common man, the regular man. So, in my opinion, why would I could just read what you read. And in fact, you will see later on, you're not even reading the original. You're reading a translation that left so much out. It's going to blow your mind later. Where scholarship stands today, some scholars merge J and E into a single source. Others propose entirely different models: supplementary hypothesis, fragmentary hypothesis. The P and D sources remain the most widely accepted as distinct. The classic JEDP framework remains the standard starting point for introductory study. The doublets, the same story told twice. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the documentary hypothesis is the phenomenon of doublets, the same story appearing twice in slightly different form. These repetitions are not accidental. They reflect two independent traditions that editors preserve side by side rather than just eliminating one. Let's first start with Abraham and Sarah, passed off as sister. This story appears in Genesis 12 in Egypt, Genesis 20, Gerar, and again in Genesis 26 with Isaac. Scholars identify one version as J, another as E. Key differences include who the king is, how God intervenes, directly versus through a dream, and the overall moral tone of the story. The repetition is no accident. It reflects two traditions that both consider the story worth preserving. Hagar and Ishmael sent away twice, once in Genesis 16 and once in Genesis 21. Each recount Hagar being driven away with her son Ishmael. One version, J, feels intimate in narrative, the drama of personal relationship. The other, E, introduces an angel as divine mediator, maintaining distance between God and human action. Together they reveal two communities wrestling with the same tradition. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you may not get the same experience in the King James Bible, because the King James Bible did more than just translate. It edited things out, and it changed the entire tone of what was in the Hebrew Bible. Now, I'm going to say this. That wasn't, it's not like his Bible was the first translation or edited version. You had the Vulgate before that by St. Jerome, right? And then you also had the Septuagint. So you there's a bunch of different Bibles, but what you want to focus on, me, like I always say, I don't want to start in the middle of nothing. But if you can show me the original and I can start to read that, and the problem used to be, hey, I don't read Hebrew. Now you have all type of translation. You have all type of softwares that will translate. You still have to be careful, right? Because say you found some Hebrew, you cut it or you copied it and you pasted in a, let's just say, AI, specifically ChatGPT, because I know this to happen. ChatGPT, I'm telling you right now, is not going to give you the direct, exactly what those words say in Hebrew. ChatGPT is still going to paraphrase for you. Why? Because I don't know why. I'm telling you the truth. It acts like it doesn't want you to know the truth still. So it's going to do all type of damage control. And it's going to give you, and it's going to say, well, the reason it's like this, and it's going to try to get in your psyche before you even realize it. So if you're one of those people that just trust the ChatGPT AI, don't do it. Your best bet is to copy those words that you found in the Hebrew Bible and then take it to like a Google Translate, right? If you can. Because there's certain words, if you don't see them, it's not telling you the truth. If it starts telling you, giving you back Lord and all this other stuff instead of Elohim, and, you know, there's one word that nobody sees. Give me a second. And that's Elion, but we'll get there. The different names for God, the textual clue, perhaps the most important textual clue scholars use to identify sources and the name used for God. This wasn't a stylistic choice. In the ancient world, a deity's name carried profound theological weight. The shift from Elohim to Yahweh within the same narrative signals that different hands are at work. Genesis 1 uses Elohim throughout structured, majestic, cosmic creation in 7 ordered days, attributed to P. Genesis 2 shifts to Yahweh Elohim. God forms man from dust, plants a garden, walks through creation. This is attributed to J, right? Your Yahweh section, category. Mid-story switches. In some narratives, the divine name switches within the same chapter, a fingerprint of 2 traditions spliced together by later addition. You know why? This is because they won't tell you the true history. In order to really get to the Bible, you must study history outside of the Bible. You must study the time periods in which they say that these Bibles was constructed. You must study the time periods on when these Hebrews were so-called exiled or under the control of another government, because you would know what is taking place if you studied those nations. If you studied the Babylonians during that time, if you studied just the area, the one thing that pops out immediately is you would understand that most regions in that time had their own independent god, and these were called city gods, right? So somebody told me today that all the different names in the Bible were the same God, and just for this just a different name for the same God. That's false. That's what they're telling you. These city gods were represented by different members of the Elohim. but we'll get there later. So if there was truthful about that, there would not be, and if you had enough energy, and if you had enough, I don't know, what you need, care to know the information and what you believe in, then you would take time, 10 minutes a week, to look into what you say you believe in, and you would find these things out. The flood story sources stitched together. The flood narrative in Genesis 6-9 is most famous and most striking. Example of two sources being woven together. Read carefully. The text contains outright contradictions that only make sense if two independent accounts were interleaved by an editor who preserved both traditions. How many animals? So in Genesis 6:19-20 is 2 of every kind, versus Genesis 7:2-3, 7 pairs of clean animals. So those are contradictory right then and there. How long did it last? 40 days and 40 nights of rain, Genesis 7:12, versus 150 days of flooding, Genesis 7:24. Right? So we're seeing the contradictions right in front of our face, and yet we are to believe that the God we serve doesn't make any mistakes, and yet we are to believe that this story was also inspired by God. Well, what does that even mean? Did God write it, or he did not write it? And who is your God? Who is this God? Because the Bible speaks of Elohim, right? And we'll get into that word in a minute. Like I said in part 1, the word Yahweh does not appear to be in the King James Version at all. And again, many scholars might tell you, or apologists may be like, yo, it's not in the King James Version because this was considered a sacred name, and it is written as a tetragrammaton. And okay, instead of Yahweh, we get Lord in all caps. The King James predominantly translates Yahweh as Lord. This follows the Jewish tradition of avoiding direct pronunciation of the sacred name, instead substituting Adonai, Lord. We'll get there. Keep on watching this series because I don't want to go somewhere too fast. I have some audio from some expert theologians with doctorates, and they're able to articulate exactly what happened way better than I. So, if you keep watching the series, we're going to get into all of that. Jehovah. Occasionally, the King James uses the name Jehovah, particularly in passages where the emphasis on the personal name of God is deemed significant. Okay. Well, like we know, J wasn't invented to the 17th century, so the letter J. The one that really strikes me is that El Elyon. I had never heard of El Elyon. Instead, the reason I didn't hear about it is because King James edited out El Elyon and replaced it with the Most High. El Elyon is the Most High. But I didn't know he was I didn't know him at all. I didn't know of him at all. Turns out the Elyon, El is a title. Elyon is the most high of all of the Elohim. He was the one that was giving out land to the different Elohims. I didn't know this. And by the way, Yahweh didn't get any land when he gave out those land. When he gave out different areas, Yahweh didn't get anything. We'll get into that as well. Listen, keep on watching, because now we're going to get into the audio. We might start with Jordan Maxwell, or we might start with Paul Wallace. But now we're about to get into the audio. I want you to take a listen. And hopefully, this is more than a little bit of just interesting stuff that I'm saying here, but it is also helping someone follow some breadcrumbs in the right direction. Like, oh, okay, I see where this is going, right? Because we may not cover everything for every question in your mind as you are struggling as a Christian believing in the Bible. I may not cover everything, but I could do my best to subside some of the anxieties and some of these questions that you may have. I already went through it, so that's what we're doing over here. Anyway, hit that like button. Do subscribe to the channel. My name is Jamel Saladin. This is Society, Past, Present, and Future Sociology channel, where we talk about everything that has happened in the past, present, or may happen in the future. All right. That being said, peace out. Catch you guys in part 3.